Hi, and thank you so much for being here with me, for taking your time to come check out me and what I'm up to. And today in this video, I'm going to be sharing on a topic that's really near and dear to my heart. That's because I have a lot of personal experience with this topic and professional as well. So it's a topic of the healing journey, and I want to share a little bit about my own healing journey, and within it, most importantly, what I would like to give you to take away with is some guidance and insights on on what might be helpful for you if you are also engaging in your healing journey. So I have my notes down here on my computer. You might see me kind of looking down a reference just to kind of keep me on point. We have an hour together here, so I want to make the most of the time by just diving right in and just going through the different topics. The topic of healing is very multifaceted, and there's just absolutely no way I can cover the whole topic in an hour, but I can at least skim the surface of a lot of different areas, and perhaps one or more appeals to you, and you can enjoy having an exploratory deep dive with it on your own, doing your own research, seeking out modalities, and otherwise you're welcome to DM me if you are needing some guidance and support in any way. It's a realm of expertise that I have of the last 20 years, and so I do have a lot to share, and it's a topic that I love to share because for me, it's really about the journey of the soul through this human experience. And it's very multifaceted, multidimensional. There's so much more going on within these bodies, and within the interaction between everything of the body and the self that it contains, and then the world around it, right? And at least that's how I experience it myself. And so what I'd like to do is first just share a little bit with you about my own healing journey. I want to also share about some new breakthroughs that came through recently I recently went through a bit of a healing crisis, and I guess I'll start there, and then I'll kind of just go down the list of what I have for you. A week ago, I just out of the blue, which is how these things happen, right? And we don't plan and expect things to happen with our bodies and our health necessarily, right? So, out of the blue, I was just flung into this really deep process, and it was very challenging and very stressful in moments. And what I want to share, I don't want to go into necessarily like all the granular detail in this video about my own journey and about what happened recently. I'll share another time, but I'm still like, regarding the recent process, I'm still in a window of time where I'm really still in the journey and just still exploring a lot. But I definitely got to the core of what was going on for me, and as happens every single time there's something going on with my body, when I get to the energetic core of what it is, it clears. And I mean like instantly. I mean as fast as it comes on, it goes away. And I just feel so grateful that I have the awareness and the skills and the training and the experience that I do that knows how to like follow the breadcrumbs of the trail from the surface level symptoms down into the core, the root of like, okay, what's going on here, And in my experience, what I've seen repeatedly, and the way that I address my own health and well-being in my healing process, and the way that I work with other people as well, is that at the core of every condition is there's an energetic core. And to take it even further than that, I believe that at the core of every experience we're having in life, there's an energetic purpose. And so what I've been shown in my own journey and in how I work with others and just the whole path, the whole topic of healing in this whole realm of my work, is that the body is the messenger, and it's really helpful to understand the language that the body speaks in, because once the language is understood, then there can be practical applications to understanding more of what it is and what it needs, and then it gives the person, me in this case, in my own experience, the opportunity to show up and give it what it needs. And the language itself, in my experience, is symbols and metaphors. And it's really interesting because as a collage artist, I gotta say, there is a very direct link between the language of collage and the language of the body and of life. Because this isn't just about the body for me, this is the language of life. It's how I experience my own life, how I'm interacting with the moment-to-moment experience. It's all a communication. It's all a communication and a reflection. And within all of it, there's the energetic core of its creation. And so, again, it's so helpful to either know or work with a guide like me or anybody that resonates with you that understands how to follow the surface level symptoms down into the deeper realms of like, what's the energetic core that exists there. And again, to be able to determine what is it? What does it need? How can I show up? What's here for me? To have these deeper processes of inquiry. So my own path in healing really started when I was 19, actually, and it was when I started taking psychedelics and going to dance parties. The psychedelic experience for me was life-changing. And I knew, and I remember saying repeatedly the first time I had my experience with both MDMA and mushrooms, I remember saying to myself, like, I feel my brain changing. I feel my perception changing. I feel my relationship to myself and to my life changing. And what is certain to me is I will never be the same again. The past version of me and the ways that I was and the relationship I had to myself, the relationship I had to my life and to my past, all of that is different and it will never be the same. So I really just can't speak enough to the volume. I can't speak enough to the value of the psychedelic experience, and especially in combination with dance. For me, that's been one of the most powerful, transformative healing channels of my life. And it's one that I also hope to be working and creating in some way, like offering for other people at some point down the road. Okay, that's like future vision, pulling it back here to this topic with you on the healing journey. And so back then, with the psychedelics and the dance, and at that point, before I had started doing that stuff, I in school was always studying topics like biology and anatomy and physiology, and for a while I thought I was going to be a physical therapist. And then I started having all these experiences, these psychedelic healing dance experiences, and then I started getting into holistic healing, and then that led me into studying Chinese herbal medicine, and then shamanic healing techniques and earth-based medicine, energy medicine, spiritual development, soul work, yeah, emotional healing. I mean, it's just been like one creative healing thread after another over time. And it's interesting, you know, I think I went through this initiation into the masculine and the feminine energetics when I was studying Chinese herbal medicine, because it's just the understanding and the breakdown of what all is encompassed within the masculine and feminine energetics of life and being. And, you know, so like, for instance, the reason why, like, we're all pretty familiar with that Chinese symbol of the yin yang, right? Like the circle. And then there's like the teardrop of like the black and the white, and there's a seed of the white in the black, right? And there's a seed of the black in the white, right? And they're in that shape, they're in that configuration of that like curvy teardrop to symbolize the rotation and how these energies are always cycling round and round and spiraling, and that this is like a pattern of life. And ultimately that all of life could be distilled down into masculine and feminine energetics. I know in the Western world, collectively, there's still like a big process in understanding what these energetics are. And in the Western world, people are still really confined to just defining them through the body. But it's all of life. There's nothing of this existence that doesn't that isn't included in one of those camps. And so the beauty of Chinese medicine, and one of the things I love about it, is the simplicity. How at the same time it encompasses vastly complicated systems of life, and it distills it down into its most simple components, and it oftentimes does so in a very poetic way, and it's in a language that's based in nature, in what we humans have experienced in nature for all of our existence. So yeah, when I started studying Chinese herbal medicine, I was really getting initiated into these energetics. And a lot of it was coming through just my own personal reflections of starting to become more aware of the masculine and feminine energies within my own being. You know, things like starting to reflect on and understand more and study more of like topics like burnout, and topics of you know, like how every single day is different, and we're constantly having to tune into where we're currently at and how to strike the balance of those masculine and feminine energetics within us, right? Because every day is different. We're changing all the time. As much as like our human mind wants like everything just to be like stable and solid and, you know, just stay the same and consistent and reliable. And there's a time and a place, and that's absolutely important. And there's definitely that's a part of our psychology. It's a part of who we are. It's a part of being in these bodies and in this physical world. But the paradox is that the only constant is change, right? So it's like every day we're constantly oscillating between these energetics, and the indication of when we're imbalanced in one or another is ultimately, you know, for the masculine energy, for example, like one indication that we're imbalanced with that energy is burnout. It's frustration. It's the feeling of, I've done everything I could think to do. Nothing's working, nothing's moving, nothing's changing. So frustrated. Like, what else can I do? And I'm so tired, and I'm so just mad that it's not going my way and how I think it should, and in the timing and all that, right? So that's a good indicator that it's time to switch into the feminine creative mode, you know? And then vice versa, like an example, you know, while the feminine creative mode is beautiful and luscious and luxurious and restorative and essential for body, mind, spirit, well-being, if we spend too much time in that feminine energy, then we become like the sloth, right? Like, we're not getting anything done. We're not using our drive, our ambition. We're not using our creative energy and our expression. We're not in alignment with our passion and our purpose and our pleasure. And so it's having the wherewithal of knowing like where we're at any moment and as best we can. I mean, obviously life is happening and we can't always just like drop everything every time, you know, the body needs something, or every time we're tuning in to, you know, the fact that we need something done differently. But we do also have a lot of control on how that does happen, and it's having the wherewithal to recognize the indicators of, oh, okay, yeah, I know what this indicator means. This indicator means that it's time to relax into the feminine mode. Or, you know what, I'm feeling, you know, usually, like oftentimes both extremes can create, I think, can be a source of depression and anxiety. I think that the depression could definitely get exacerbated, like in the, like when the feminine mode is like being overdone, you know. It's like we need the movement. We need to feel like a sense of like purpose and a sense of belonging within that purpose, and we need to have community around that purpose. And so this is like, I'm trying to think, like early 2000s when I really got initiated, and it was just, you know, as spontaneous as these things are. I mean, I'm telling you, like, you know, I would have these amazing yoga practices and just get these insights during my yoga. I would oftentimes smoke cannabis and do yoga and practice belly dance, and I would just get flooded with insights of all kinds, you know, that would ultimately help guide me in my own healing journey. And it very clearly came through about this piece of the balance of the masculine and feminine energies. And it's a whole topic that I've already created a lot of content on, but for the purpose of this video, I'm just gonna leave that topic there for now. I'm gonna continue on. So I'm going to share the breakthrough that I had recently in my own healing crisis. And then I'll share a little bit more about what that experience was for me. And I also want to then go into just some different topics of the healing journey itself. So again, my hope in this video is that I'm giving you something that you can take away with and actually apply into your life. So whether it's just like a part of the story that you relate to and that kind of like clicks something into place for you, or whether there's like an actual piece of information where you're like, oh yeah, that definitely resonates and you want to pick that up and, you know, use it in your own way. That's really what I hope to give you in this time together. So the breakthrough that I had, okay. I was driving home. I was in the car. And there's something about driving that can like really bring insights and clarity. And so as some of you may know, as some of you that are familiar with my work, you may know, I've been working with relationships and intimacy, sexuality for the last 8 years, going on 9 years. And that's another topic near and dear to my heart. And it's very directly linked to the topic of the healing journey and health and well-being in general. So in the relationship training I did with Esther Perel, I did one of her trainings, and she's a phenomenal teacher and guide, as some of you may know. There's this concept in relationship healing, and it's about perpetual problems versus solvable problems, and how it's really helpful in a relationship to get really clear on what are the perpetual problems and what are the solvable problems. And that for most couples, the solvable problems are actually the bulk of what they're dealing with. Like, as annoying or hurtful or irritating or frustrating as they may be, most of them are solvable. And then typically there's these perpetual problems, and the perpetual problems tend to be far less in quantity, though they also tend to be more severe in intensity. And the benefit of really understanding the clarity of the solvable problems versus the perpetual problems is that when you know that what you're dealing with within your relationship is a perpetual problem, which all relationships have, there's no getting away from it. And it really just comes down to, like, you know, between one person or another, it really just comes down to what are the perpetual problems that you're ultimately willing to live with. That's what we're all up against in any relationship. But those perpetual problems, it's like the concept is basically, it's not changing. It's not going anywhere. So therefore, it's not going to be helpful for a couple to think that it needs to change or that the other person needs to change. The most helpful thing is actually for the perspective of both people to change, and for their relationship to the problem itself to change, and for them to establish healthy navigational patterns so that when the perpetual problem arises, inevitably, that they kind of have a game plan together of like, okay, here's the thing, here we go. You know, so that there's like an effective game plan of how to get to the other side, right? And ultimately, the beauty of the perpetual problem, really any problem in a relationship, is that the way that the navigation happens, and when the couple gets to the other side, if it's done well, it will bring the couple closer together, right? I mean, that's how it goes. So part of developing a healthier relationship to the perpetual problem is understanding that that's actually the purpose, is to create more cohesion, more unity, more love, even though it's not fun going through it. Okay. So that's the idea. So, and I don't know, I was like, like I said, I just having this random moment and driving, and, all of a sudden, bam, had this insight. I was like, oh, I get it. I was like, so just as we deal with perpetual problems and solvable problems within relationship with each other, we experience that within ourselves as well, our relationship within ourselves. And I was like, to myself, I was like, duh. Like, of course it would work like that, because the way life is, it works in like fractal patterns, like a microcosm to macrocosm. So in this example, the macrocosm would be the couple, and the microcosm would be the solo, the person, the single person. And then like the next macro from there could be like, you know, from the couple to the family, to the community, to, you know, it just keeps going and going. I mean, the ultimate macro being, you know, the global human family. So, yeah, it made me realize, oh, that's what I'm working with here in my healing journey. Like the thing that keeps getting triggered and that I keep cycling in over and over, like my whole life, you know, it's like I'm dealing with a perpetual problem. So it really put things into perspective for me, because part of my recent little healing crisis I went through, it's like I'm having this moment where I'm just in the thick of it, and I'm going through these different waves, and I'm in this moment where I'm just kind of sitting back and observing, and I'm just like questioning, you know, I'm just watching what's happening. And I'm just like, so in that healing crisis experience, I'm like really triggered and processing a lot around inner child wounding. But it had a direct effect, a very challenging direct effect on my physical body as well. So the physical symptoms were what first caught my attention, because they were very prominent. But again, I've been on this healing journey for over 20 years and working in this field for a long time. And it's just like, I know that like at the core, there's like the energetic reason, oftentimes emotional. So, you know, I was in this moment where I'm just doing my own inner work and my own like inquiry process that I do to help me get to like, what is that core? How do I follow the breadcrumbs of the symptoms? How do I follow that trail into the core and discover what it is? And I did that. And then the symptoms just started melting away. I'm always amazed, you guys. This has happened so many times in my life experience. I'm in awe and fascination of the multi-faceted complexity and multi-dimensional aspect of, you know, just this embodied experience. Anyhow. Yeah, so I'm in this moment, right, where I'm just like watching myself, and I am just kind of questioning, like, you know, I have been doing so much work on the inner child for so long, and I'm asking myself, like, you know, I'm 42. How much longer am I gonna be, you know, in process with this stuff, you know? And it's natural, I think, on the healing journey, we come to these points where it's kind of like, you know, we just wonder, like, when is it going to go away? Like, I just want to like heal and transform and release and be cleared, free and clear, right? And again, I think most of the issues that we're dealing with are solvable problems that we do that with. But then when this insight came through, and what I'll share too is, so I work really, really closely with astrology as a framework of understanding aspects of my personality and my soul and my soul journey in this life. So it's one of the many lenses that I use on my own healing journey and with others as well. Because the benefit of working with archetypal frameworks is it really helps to open that door to what's the soul lesson, what's the soul growth, what is the soul ready for at this time. And so archetypes are really helpful to explore that through, and so I work a lot with the astrology and also tarot to do so. And when I was having this healing crisis and this breakthrough, what I realized is that I was having a very chironic healing experience. So there's a planetoid called Chiron in our orbit, and it's currently in the sign of Taurus. And when I was going through my healing journey, and like after I kind of got like past the the freak out of like what was going on with my physical body, and then I was like, okay, I need to check the astrology of like what the heck is happening here, you know. And I'm so glad I did. It was so helpful, because I realized, oh my gosh, I'm in a Chiron journey right now, and Chiron is all about the archetype of the wounded healer. And the story of the wounded healer, in a nutshell, it's a mother wound in childhood that the centaur carries within himself, And along the path of his healing journey, and it's ultimately about like being rejected by the mother. And along the path of his healing journey, he's training in and applying all these different healing modalities, which then he himself becomes a healer. And then he's able to help other people heal. People heal themselves. We can all have guides and healers along the way, but ultimately we have to be the one to heal ourselves, right? So anyhow, the journey of Chiron is basically that he's never actually able to fully heal himself of this one deep emotional wound. But in his journey of trying to heal himself, he becomes a very skilled healer and guide for other people on their own healing journey. And my natal Chiron, was being really triggered by the Pisces new moon recently. And so I realized when that concept that I spoke to a moment ago about the perpetual problems versus solvable problems that is in the realm of like relationship healing. And when I realized like, oh, that's how it is for us too. And I was like, oh, and there's the Chiron, you know, that wounded healer, like the wound that we just perhaps never fully heal and transform and release. And it made me realize this piece too regarding that of like, maybe there are just certain topics in life that we just go round and round and round and round because that's ultimately what we, I believe, chose before we came into this life. I believe that we have many, many lives and many incarnations, and that our soul actually chooses before we come in the family that we're going to be born into so that we can be challenged in all the ways we need to get us on the path, to give us an opportunity to choose where we're going to go with that and how we're going to create with that in our lives. And I was thinking about it, like maybe there's just some topics where it's like that's our lifelong journey. And maybe that's just what it is, you know, because as I was like in that moment of sitting back and observing myself and asking myself like, how much longer am I gonna be cycling through this topic, you know? What I realized is, well, at least every single time this gets triggered, I definitely am progressing and like a lot. And I mean that, and I feel so like within it, I feel really accomplished. And then I thought to myself, and maybe that's just the point. Maybe that's just the point, you know, because like sometimes people will have this thing like, I hear sometimes people say things like, you know, sometimes things just happen for no reason. I'm like, I don't agree with that at all. I think everything happens for a reason. We are all very powerful, conscious creators of our life, and our souls are so powerful. And I think sometimes we are ready for a soul journey, a soul healing and growth. And perhaps sometimes it's hard to make sense of why things happen. But again, the value of being able to, first of all, get really clear of what those surface level breadcrumbs are, right? Of like symptoms or negative experiences, whatever it is, and how to follow those breadcrumbs deeper, deeper, deeper into the layers to really get to the core of what that energetic root is. And then again, do the work around like, okay, what is that? What does it need? How can I show up? What can I give to it? So beautiful. I am in eternal awe and fascination with the healing journey, and the soul, the journey of the soul. So yeah, you know, like for instance, in this experience that I'm kind of sharing about here with you, it's like nothing necessarily happened externally. Like there was no like known cause of like why my body had this healing crisis. And I went to acupuncture twice, once for it, and then also once because my cycle recently was really late by like 3 weeks, and it's connected to what happened recently. And my cycle finally came because of the acupuncture and the herbs he gave me. But in both times going in, he was like, Kelley, there's like nothing about your body that would indicate why any of these things are going on for you. He was just like, I'm at a total loss. And especially during my healing crisis last week, I was like, okay, that is definitely, those are the last words I want to hear coming out of your mouth right now, you know? Excuse me. You know, it's like, I really wanted like some conclusion of like, what, like WTF is going on? But at the same time, it really like put me into this space of like, okay. Perhaps it is just an energetic thing. And again, when I looked into the astrology of it, and I realized, I'm having a massive Chiron trigger right now. And just with the other planetary configurations that specifically, I mean, it was just like so clearly like speaking to exactly what was going on with me. And it was like, wow, okay. And it's like, well, I guess this is what I'm ready for right now. I guess this is the next layer of, and ultimately the healing crisis I went through last week, you know, what I realized was, wow, okay, what's happening right now, it's just one more thread on the entire web of my lifelong healing journey. And and it was so powerful. And so, you know, and I think where I want to go now with this is how, you know, I think one of the reasons that the human experience is so complex is because we're just constantly living in these paradoxes. And I think it's natural for the human mind to just really want to compartmentalize everything into their neat little boxes and like separate everything, and like, so everything just makes sense, you know. But the comedy of the paradox is basically like, it's that, and it's that, and it's that. It's all of it at the same time in the same space happening. And ultimately it's up to you to decide what to make of it, you know. Our minds typically will want to just grab onto one thing and reject all the others just to like try to simplify. But again, the paradox, it's like to really embrace the complexity and the fullness of our human experience, we have to embrace all of it, all parts of ourselves. And we have to give a space for all the voices to be heard. And again, one of the reasons why I love working with astrology is because, you know, each of the different 12 houses, like when you see the chart, right, and each like pie slice that like governs different areas of life and psychology, and like body, mind, spirit, well-being. Yeah, I mean, that they each kind of represent a voice inside of us. And that's sometimes why we get into like a big tangle, right, within our process. Because it's like, I don't know, part of me feels this, and part of me feels this, and part of me feels this. And I'm just kind of lost within all of it. And it's like, because the reality is, because it's all a part of you, right? And so, yeah. And so what I'll say is like, it was it was like almost like miraculous actually, how when I got to the energetic core, and it was like, I see you, I know you and I, we go way back. We've been doing this a long time, around and around. But it's more like a spiral. It's more like how it moves through my life. It's not around like just like a rat wheel, right? No, it's like a spiral, how it moves, which is actually the same way that our solar system moves through space, is like in this spiral. If you've ever seen a visual, which is really cool, you should look it up if you haven't seen it, what it looks like for our solar system to be moving through space. You know, you got the sun just kind of like straight and steady, just doing its thing. And then you got like these planets that are orbiting around and constantly spiraling. And that's a lot of how the healing journey is as well. You're never coming back to the same exact place, but you're coming back to places that are definitely familiar. And hopefully if you're doing your work and it's effective, then you're progressing in it, right? That's how it is for me anyways. And yeah, maybe we just come into this, maybe we come into these lives with this agreement to our soul that says something like, this is what I'm ready for. I'm going to choose this family system so that I am presented with the perfect scenarios to grow me in this way. And this is going to be my soul's work in this life. And so like regarding the healing journey, it's like as much, it's kind of like, again, that paradox. Yes, heal, transform, release, and clear. And also at the same time, right next to it, maybe there are things that we are kind of just like a lifelong partner with. And maybe there are, you know, and I guess one reason why I'm bringing this forward is like, you know, I know for myself, for sure, I've had moments where I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired of this topic, you know, and I've heard from other people too, like similar things of like, you know, it's like, yeah, just, you know, the endurance that's needed to like kind of keep up with that work, you know. Obviously we all have lives to live and we're not like always like going through like these deeper, you know, shadow aspects of ourselves and our healing journey and stuff. But there's times like I said last week when I was thrown into the healing crisis, I mean, there's times where the health stuff just comes up and it just, you're blindsided, you know, and there's really no choice but to go into it. So I want to just continue to move on because, gosh, the hour goes by so fast when I'm doing these things. Okay. My understanding of, because of my training in Chinese herbal medicine, and also in classical Shaivism, classical Tantra, a branch of classical Tantra called Shaivism. My understanding is that the spirit is the masculine energy and the soul is the feminine energy. That spirit, the masculine energy, is the formless ground of existence. The formless ground of existence. So there's no details, there's no name, there's no story, there's no past, there's nothing defined. It's just the formless ground of existence. And then the feminine is the soul, which is basically everything that is known and all of the knowers. Again, everything that is known, everything, physical, internal, energetic, material, basically anything that can be defined as being one thing and not anything else. Then you've taken a piece of that formless ground of being, that infinite potential of existence, the masculine energy. And as soon as anything becomes defined as something, it becomes something that can be known, and it itself might even be a knower, like a human. We are both something that can be known. Like I'm knowing you right now, I'm seeing you, and you're seeing me, and we're both here together. So we are both an object, and we are also both a subject. Okay, so those are very broad aspects of the masculine and feminine energetic systems of life. And within that, so the soul of like our human selves, the soul of everything, you know, part of what makes that healing journey so complex is that there's so many layers, cycles, patterns, There's so many different lenses to look through. I mean, I oftentimes, like when I'm working with an issue of any kind, I see most things. I'm a very visual person. I see most things kind of like a multifaceted gem, you know, like if you've ever seen like the mineral coming to mind right now for me is garnet. It's a really deep red. I have this epic specimen. It's a very deep red, multifaceted structure, and it's like one aspect of our experience could have so many different facets, and there's so many different lenses to look through, and each one is valid. And how on the healing journey, it's really about I think, you know, the holistic model is so important because we are very multidimensional. Like, yes, body, mind, spirit. And within that, I mean, so much complexity even just within that. That I think the holistic healing system is essential for true healing. And luckily there's so many modalities and therapists and guides and healers and teachers and coaches and training. I mean, it's endless, and it's amazing because it's like, there's really something for everybody. And I know in my own experience, it has just been so valuable to explore and like all these different modalities that really speak to me. And to have all those lenses to look in on, like, okay, my multifaceted experience happening right now, like what happens when I look through this lens? And I'm just like, oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, that exposes me to a bunch of information. What happens when I turn around and look through this lens? And it's like, oh, wow, that's a whole different layer. Like, okay. And then it just like builds this whole picture. And within it, it gives me insights and guidance and tools to proceed on the path to really understanding so much about what it is and what it needs. And if I could say, one of the things that's been, because I know we're kind of nearing the end of the call soon, so I'm going to be wrapping it up soon. So I want to leave you with one of the most effective exercises that I do for myself to create that path from the breadcrumb surface level symptoms into the deeper, like core energetic root of what's going on. It's just it's very, very simple. It's so simple. I mean, and it works literally every time. And this is how I work with myself. This is part of how I work with my clients as well. I sit quietly. By the way, the healing process requires a lot of time and space. So I sit quietly with myself, and I just really tune into what my experience is with whatever I'm dealing with. And I'll just start by asking myself, I typically use the emotional body to guide this inquiry process, because the emotions, they just have so much, they're very useful as a guidepost to create that roadmap. So I'll just sit and I'll just start with a question. So the practice is basically, I ask a question out loud to myself, and then I answer the question out loud to myself. And the trick, I gotta take a sip of water real quick. The trick is in the answering of the question, it's really important to just say the first thing that comes to mind. There's this tendency to want to put it through a filter to have it make sense, you know, and to be something like more clear, more profound or something, you know. So the trick is, don't put it through a filter. Just let the very first thing that comes to mind. And whatever that answer is going to inform what the next question is. And then I ask that next question out loud. And then again, just very first thing that comes to mind, speak that out loud. I find this to be really effective as a writing practice as well. So I'll ask the question out loud, answer the question out loud, and then I'll write it down. And that will even further inform what the next question is. And I'll just keep repeating until I get to the core. So for instance, I'm just going to give an example of how that looks. I'll be sitting quietly, tuning in, and I ask myself, what am I feeling right now? I'm feeling frustrated. Why am I feeling frustrated? The thing I want to happen isn't happening as I think it should. I'm just giving examples. And then it's, next question could be, why do I think it needs to happen that way? Because it would be really convenient. Next question could be, is there another way that it could happen? Sure. What would that look like? Well, it would look like maybe I don't do it like this and maybe I do it like this instead. Next question. Would that make me feel differently than how I feel now? And I'm assuming that answer would be yes. I'll just leave it there for now. And if it's no, if the answer is no, then it's a deeper inquiry into that no. And ultimately, as simple as this sounds, it works every single time. And again, this is a way that I've been working with myself for, so long now. I've been really engaged with my own healing path for over 20 years and working with people professionally in this path for almost as long as well. And I just, across the board, every single time, myself and with my clients have great success with this very, very simple exercise. And so I think, let's see, is there anything else that yes, there's a really important little section to share with you, and I only have a few minutes left, so I'm just going to drop it kind of like a list. Thanks for being here. Okay. In my experience, a big part of the healing journey is about reclaiming power. And that's because I think a lot, especially in our adult lives, and even, it's inner child work is a little bit different. We're at the whim of the adults in our life, and we're not capable of making long-term big life choices when we're children. So it's a little bit different. So I'm going to speak to the healing journey as an adult. Oh gosh, all the ways that we relinquish power to others outside of ourselves, all the ways that we abandon ourselves and betray ourselves and dishonor ourselves and devalue ourselves and disrespect ourselves. And a lot of the healing journey is about reclaiming power through, first of all, getting clear of how we're doing that, and going through the process of creating new patterns so that we are ultimately creating a more healthy, solid containment of our energy, of our power, so that we're not leaking, so that we're not hemorrhaging energy into directions rather than, keeping it contained for our own health and vitality, and being discerning on how energy gets dispersed to others. So a big part of the healing journey in my experience is reclamation of power. Within that reclamation of power, there are many points of being being confronted with all the many addictions that we have in our lives. And yes, addictions can be to substances, to food. There's addictions of all kinds, right? I mean, anything can be turned into an addiction, really. I think for most people, some of the hardest addictions are just simply lifestyle habits that they like, that they're used to, and is part of just like a routine that just maybe on a health and wellness level doesn't work for them, but maybe works for them, on some kind of maybe logistical level. But part of the path of healing is reclamation of power and realizing all of the addictions that we have in our lives that we're ultimately giving power to, losing power to, and to be in a conscious, engaged path with really exploring what those addictions are and transforming those. So much easier said than done. But with the right guidance and with the quality of motivation that it takes, anything's possible. And I truly believe that. And so, addictions, they are surface level symptoms to deeper core issues that we're ultimately using the addiction to hide, right? The addiction, whatever it is, covering up something deeper, maybe a fear, maybe some kind of anxiety. And so that's at the core, of that work. And the last that I'll say, and I'm so glad I got all the way to this point, because this is one of the most important parts on the healing path that is relevant to literally every single thing I've said so far, which is connected to the topic of reclaiming power, is really understanding how powerful of a conscious creative being that you are, and that every single choice that you make is literally carving the life that you're living out of the infinite potential of what it could be. And that to have the awareness that every single choice you make, every single day, is your creative paintbrush. It's the creative knife that you're carving. I'm like seeing like sculpting clay, right? Like just like a pile of clay that could be sculpted into anything. That every single choice you make is what turns that clay into a form, into an expression, into an experience. And the importance of really aligning the choices to your value, to your devotion to your path, your devotion to your truth and authenticity. And with that, we are at the very end of this call. Thank you again so very much for spending your time with me here. It was fun for me to go on this deep dive on this topic that again is just so sacred to me, and I very much hope that it was helpful for you in some way. And if anything I said really spoke to you, and if you're wanting more guidance or support in any way, please feel free to DM me, and I'll just leave it there for now. Okay. Thank you again. Take care and be well.